My sister used AI to fake phone calls where I promised her my $450,000 condo. My own parents believed her until the FBI got involved. When my sister used deepfakes to steal my inheritance. I never imagined I'd be writing this, but I need to get this story out there as a warning to others. What started as a simple inheritance dispute with my sister turned into a technological nightmare that nearly cost me everything. I'm James, 28M, and this is how my sister Sarah, 26F, used AI technology to try to steal my $450,000 condo. Let me start from the beginning, because the context matters. Our grandmother, Dorothy, was diagnosed with dementia 5 years ago. At the time, I was 23 and had just graduated with a computer science degree. I'd landed a decent remote job with a tech startup. Sarah was 21, in her final year at NYU studying digital marketing, living her best life in Manhattan. When Grandma's diagnosis came, everything changed. She needed full-time care, and the quotes from nursing homes were astronomical, $8,000 to $12,000 per month for a decent facility. Our parents, Patricia and Robert, were struggling financially after Dad's construction business went under during COVID. They couldn't afford to help, and they lived in a small apartment in Florida. I made the decision to move in with Grandma. Her condo in downtown Seattle was plenty big enough for both of us, and my remote job meant I could work from anywhere. Sarah called me an idiot. "You're throwing away your 20s, she said. "Grandma won't even remember you're there." But Grandma did remember, at least for the first 2 years. We had good days and bad days. I learned to cook her favorite meals, drove her to countless doctor appointments, managed her medications, and held her hand through the scary, confused nights. I put dating on hold, skipped trips with friends, and basically became a 24/7 caregiver while trying to maintain my job performance. Sarah visited exactly 4 times in 5 years. Always with a suitcase full of excuses. "You know how demanding my job is," she'd say, working for some trendy marketing agency. "Besides, you're so good with her. I'd just be in the way." She'd stay for a weekend, take some Instagram photos with Grandma to show what a devoted granddaughter she was, then flee back to New York. The last year was the hardest. Grandma rarely recognized me anymore. She'd call me by my grandfather's name, sometimes my father's. But I stayed. I owed her that much. She'd helped raise us after our parents divorced when we were kids. When Grandma passed last February, I was devastated but also relieved. She'd been suffering, and watching her fade away had been torture. The funeral was small, tasteful. Sarah flew in, gave a touching eulogy about all the summers we'd spent at Grandma's condo, then left the same night for a crucial client meeting. The will reading was 3 weeks later. Our family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, gathered us in his office. The contents were straightforward: some money to various charities, personal items distributed among friends, her jewelry collection to Sarah, $50,000 in cash also to Sarah, and the condo to me. The condo. A 2-bedroom unit in Capitol Hill worth approximately $450,000 in Seattle's insane real estate market. Grandma had bought it in the 1970s for $35,000, and it was fully paid off. Sarah's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, disbelief, then fury. "That can't be right," she said. "Check again." Mr. Henderson showed her the will, dated 3 years prior when Grandma was still legally competent. There was even a handwritten note attached: "To my grandson James, who gave up so much to care for me. This home is yours now. Make new memories here." "This is bullshit," Sarah hissed after the meeting. "I'm her granddaughter. The jewelry and cash together are worth maybe $75,000. You get a $500,000 property. How is that fair?" "Fair." I couldn't believe her. "I spent 5 years. "Your choice," she snapped. "Nobody asked you to play nurse. You probably manipulated her into this. Elder abuse is what this is." She stormed off, and I thought that would be the end of it. A temper tantrum from someone who'd contributed nothing but expected everything. For a few months, there was radio silence. I moved fully into the condo, redecorating slowly, trying to make it mine while keeping Grandma's memory alive. I kept her reading chair, her photo wall, but updated the kitchen and painted the walls. It was therapeutic. Then Sarah started her campaign. First came the guilt trips. Text messages about her student loans, $120,000 for that NYU degree. Calls about how she was struggling to afford rent in New York, how unfair it was that I had a free place to live. She suggested I could at least let her live there rent-free for a year to get on her feet. When guilt didn't work, she tried negotiation. She offered to buy me out for $200,000, less than half the market value. "It's fair," she insisted. "You didn't pay anything for it." When I refused, She proposed being co-owners. Her idea of co-ownership was that she'd move in, pay no expenses, and I'd handle all the maintenance and taxes. By September, she'd shifted to anger. Nasty emails about family loyalty. Facebook posts about some people's greed. She told our cousins I was keeping her from her rightful inheritance. At Thanksgiving, she made a scene, tearfully telling everyone how Grandma had always promised her the condo. That was a lie, but some family members started looking at me differently. Uncle Michael pulled me aside. Maybe you could share it with her somehow, he suggested. Family is more important than property. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one who'd spent 5 years changing Grandma's diapers and spoon-feeding her dinner. In December, Sarah called with a different tone. Friendly, almost apologetic. I've been thinking, she said. You're right. You did so much for Grandma. I've been selfish. I should have been suspicious, but I wanted to believe she'd finally accepted reality. I'm working on a family history project, she continued. A digital memorial for Grandma. I want to include stories from everyone, but especially you. You knew her best those last years. It seemed harmless. Therapeutic, even. She sent me a list of topics to cover. Grandma's childhood stories, her marriage to Grandpa, funny family anecdotes. But also oddly specific prompts about the condo, when she bought it, why it meant so much to her, what she'd said about passing it on. I spent hours recording on my good podcasting microphone. Sarah insisted on quality audio. I told every story I could remember, read from Grandma's letters and journals, even recreated some of her favorite sayings with her exact inflection. Sarah seemed thrilled with the recordings. January passed quietly. Too quietly. Then, on a rainy Tuesday in early February, I got served with legal papers at work. My coworker Jennifer's eyes were wide as she watched me read them. Sarah was suing me in small claims court for breach of verbal contract. She claimed I'd agreed to transfer the condo deed to her and was now refusing to follow through. Her evidence: audio recordings of multiple phone conversations where I allegedly made this promise. I actually laughed. This is insane, I told Jennifer. I never said anything like that. But when I read the detailed transcripts included with the filing, my blood ran cold. These weren't vague claims. The supposed conversations were specific, detailed, and referenced real events. According to these transcripts, I'd called Sarah multiple times, expressed guilt about the inheritance, and agreed to transfer the property to make things fair. One excerpt that made my stomach drop. Sarah, I've been thinking about what you said at Thanksgiving. You're right. Grandma loved us equally. It doesn't feel right that I got the condo just because I happened to be here. I want to make this right. I'll transfer the deed to you. You deserve it as much as I do. I knew immediately these conversations never happened. But the dates lined up with actual phone calls we'd had, calls I remembered as her asking for money or complaining about the will. I called my friend Marcus that night. He worked in cybersecurity and understood technology better than anyone I knew. Is it possible she edited our real calls? I asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Edited, maybe. But James, have you heard of deepfake audio? My heart sank. Of course. The Family History Project. Hours of my voice, saying every possible word and phrase. Sarah hadn't been creating a memorial, she'd been gathering training data. Consumer-grade voice cloning AI has gotten incredibly sophisticated, Marcus explained. With enough sample audio, someone can make you say literally anything. And if she has recordings of your actual speech patterns, inflections, even your breathing. I hired Patricia Martinez the next morning, a lawyer recommended for tech-related cases. She didn't flinch when I explained my theory. We'll need forensic audio analysis, she said. This is sophisticated fraud if true. But proving it won't be cheap or easy. The retainer was $10,000. There went my emergency fund. First court hearing, 2 weeks later. Nothing could have prepared me for sitting in that courtroom, listening to my own voice say things I'd never said. Sarah's lawyer, a sharp-dressed man named David Collins, played the recordings with theatrical flair. Your Honor, Recording 1, dated March 15, 2024. A 23-minute phone conversation between my client and the defendant. My voice filled the courtroom. I've been doing a lot of soul-searching, Sarah. What happened with Grandma's will? It wasn't what she would have wanted. She always talked about treating us equally. I want to honor her real wishes. The condo should be yours. It was perfect. Every inflection, every pause, my habit of trailing off mid-sentence, all there. But the words were fiction. That conversation never happened, I whispered to Patricia. I know, she whispered back. Stay calm. Sarah played her part flawlessly, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, looking hurt and confused by my denial. Her story was that I'd promised her the condo out of guilt. She'd started making plans to move to Seattle, even put a deposit on a moving company, and now I was cruelly backing out. When Patricia tried to explain deepfake technology to Judge Harrison, a man in his 70s, he looked skeptical. "Counselor, are you suggesting these crystal-clear recordings are some kind of computer fabrication?" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Your Honor. This technology." "I've heard enough for today." The judge looked troubled. "These are serious allegations from both sides. I'm ordering a continuation. Both parties will have time to gather additional evidence." Outside the courthouse, my parents were waiting. The betrayal on their faces hit harder than anything Sarah had done. "We heard the recordings, James," Mom said, her voice shaking. "That's your voice. Your exact voice. Mom, please, you have to believe me. It's AI. Don't." Dad's voice was hard. "We raised you better than this. To promise your sister and then lie about it? That's not the son we know." Sarah stood behind them, the picture of wounded innocence. "I just don't understand why he's doing this," she said softly. "We were finally fixing our relationship. That night, I couldn't sleep. My own voice echoed in my head, that fabricated voice saying words I'd never spoken. How do you fight against yourself?" The investigation deepens. 1 month later. Patricia wasn't giving up. She found Dr. Elizabeth Chen, one of the country's leading experts in AI-generated audio detection. The initial consultation alone cost $2,000. "This is sophisticated work," Dr. Chen said after reviewing the recordings. "But not perfect. Every AI system leaves fingerprints. We just need to find them." Meanwhile, my life was unraveling. Sarah had shared the recordings with our extended family. My cousin Jessica uninvited me from her wedding. My aunt blocked me on social media after posting about how greed destroys families. Even my boss pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay. Apparently, Sarah had called my workplace to check on my mental state. The forensic analysis was painstaking. Dr. Chen examined every millisecond of audio, looking for anomalies invisible to the human ear. She explained that AI-generated speech often has telltale signs: unnatural silences between words, pitch patterns that don't match human speech, background noise inconsistencies. "The challenge," she said, "is that the technology improves constantly. What was detectable 6 months ago might be invisible now." Sarah escalated. She filed a separate civil suit for emotional damages, claiming my breach of promise had caused severe anxiety and depression. She submitted therapy bills, a doctor's note about stress-induced insomnia, even a letter from her employer about taking mental health leave. All fabricated around a promise that never existed. I started recording everything. Every call, every interaction. I installed security cameras. I became paranoid, but what choice did I have? My own voice had been weaponized against me. Then Patricia found something interesting. The dates of the alleged promise calls coincided with Sarah's boyfriend Kevin visiting Seattle. Kevin, who happened to work as a machine learning engineer for a tech company specializing in synthetic media. "We need to subpoena his records," Patricia said. "This might be bigger than just your sister." The breakthrough. 6 weeks later. Dr. Chen found the smoking gun. Or rather, smoking guns. Multiple tiny flaws in the fabricated recordings. Microglitches in pitch during emotional phrases. AI struggling to replicate genuine human emotion, background noise that didn't match my actual environment. They'd used generic room tone, breathing patterns that were mathematically too regular, most damning. Phrase construction patterns that matched AI training datasets, not my natural speech. "These recordings are 100% artificial," Dr. Chen testified at the next hearing. "Sophisticated, yes. But definitively fake." Sarah's lawyer tried to discredit her. Questioned her credentials, her methods, implied she was biased. But Dr. Chen systematically dismantled each objection with scientific precision. Judge Harrison finally seemed to grasp the situation. "Ms. Williams," he addressed Sarah directly, "I'm ordering you to submit all your electronic devices for forensic examination." Sarah's composure cracked. "My laptop was stolen last week. And my phone. I dropped it in water yesterday." The courtroom was silent. Even her lawyer looked uncomfortable. "How convenient," the judge said dryly. "Well, I'm sure you have cloud backups. Those will be subpoenaed immediately." Sarah went pale. The unraveling. 2 months later. The forensic team found everything in Sarah's cloud storage. She tried to delete it, but digital forensics is unforgiving. They recovered Installation logs for voice cloning software training files using my recordings, multiple versions of the fake conversations, showing her refining them, text messages with Kevin discussing the plan, Google searches for verbal contract law, deepfake audio, legal cases, how to make AI voice natural, a spreadsheet calculating potential profit from selling the condo. But the most damning evidence was a recorded conversation between Sarah and Kevin, planning the whole scheme. Sarah, the family history thing worked perfectly. He talked for hours. Kevin, I've got enough to clone his voice for anything now. What exactly do you need him to say? Sarah, I've written scripts. Make it sound guilty but not too guilty. Like he's conflicted. Kevin, this is seriously illegal, you know that? Sarah, it's my inheritance. I'm just correcting Grandma's mistake. When confronted with this evidence, Kevin immediately flipped. He provided everything, emails, technical details, even early versions that weren't convincing enough. He claimed Sarah had manipulated him, threatened to leave him if he didn't help. The criminal charges were filed within a week: fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit grand theft, forgery, and cybercrime charges that could result in up to 15 years in prison. The aftermath: 3 months later. The trial was swift. With Kevin's testimony and the digital evidence, Sarah's guilt was undeniable. She tried to claim Kevin had acted alone, that he'd created the recordings without her knowledge to help her. Nobody bought it. She was convicted on all counts. The sentence, 8 years in prison, though she'll probably serve 5 with good behavior. She has to pay restitution for my legal fees, though I doubt I'll ever see that money. The family impact has been devastating. My parents were in court every day, aging years in weeks as they watched their daughter revealed as a criminal. Mom hasn't stopped apologizing for not believing me. Dad can barely look me in the eye. We failed you both, he said after the verdict. How did we raise one child who'd sacrifice everything for family and another who'd destroy family for money? I didn't have an answer. Some relatives still think I somehow framed Sarah. Conspiracy theories about how I used my tech knowledge to set her up. Family gatherings are minefields now. Half the family won't speak to Sarah, the other half won't speak to me. Grandma would be heartbroken. I'm selling the condo. Every room holds memories now, not just of Grandma, but of this nightmare. The Seattle market is strong. I'll clear enough after legal fees to start over somewhere else. Maybe Austin or Denver. Somewhere nobody knows my name or my voice. The legal bills totaled $87,000. My credit cards are maxed, my 401k is empty, and I'll be paying off loans for the next 5 years. Patricia says I can sue Sarah for damages, but what's the point? She has nothing now. Just a prison sentence and a destroyed future. Lessons learned. This experience taught me things I wish I'd never had to learn. Document everything. I'm grateful for my phone records proving those conversations never happened. Without them, it would have been harder to establish the calls were fake, to be cautious about recordings. That family history project seemed so innocent. Now I know any recording can become raw material for voice cloning. Family can be your greatest threat. The person who tried to destroy me wasn't a stranger or a business rival. It was my sister, someone I protected from bullies as kids. The legal system is unprepared for AI crimes. Judge Harrison admitted afterward he'd never encountered anything like this. Many lawyers and judges don't understand the technology, making justice harder to achieve. Truth is expensive. $87,000 to prove I hadn't said something. Justice shouldn't cost that much. Technology democratizes crime. Sarah isn't a tech genius. She just had a boyfriend who knew the tools and the willingness to use them. This technology is accessible to anyone with bad intentions. Kevin testified that creating the deepfakes took him less than a week. The software cost $99 per month. The barrier to entry for this kind of fraud is terrifyingly low. During the trial, we learned Sarah had been planning this for months. She'd researched similar cases, looking for precedents where verbal agreements about property had been upheld. She'd consulted with lawyers under false pretenses, asking hypothetical questions about property transfers and verbal contracts. The prosecutor said this was one of the first cases of deepfake audio being used in property fraud, but it won't be the last. This is the future of white-collar crime, she told me. Your case will help establish precedent. I'm glad something good might come from this nightmare. Where I am now. It's been 3 months since the conviction. I wake up some nights thinking I hear my fake voice making promises I never made. PTSD, my therapist says. Trust issues that may never fully heal. I've started a blog about deepfake fraud, trying to warn others. The response has been overwhelming. Dozens of people sharing similar stories, though most not as extreme as mine. Voice cloning scams are rising exponentially. Sarah writes me letters from prison. I don't open them. Mom begs me to forgive her, says she's sorry, that prison has changed her. But how do you forgive someone who tried to steal your life using your own voice? The condo sold last month. The new owners are a young couple, first-time buyers, excited about their future. I didn't tell them about the lawsuit or the family drama. Let them make happy memories there. I'm moving to Denver next week. Got a job with a cybersecurity firm. Turns out, my nightmare made me an expert in AI fraud detection. There's dark irony in that. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Dr. Chen hadn't found those flaws. If the technology had been slightly better. If Sarah had been a little smarter about covering her tracks. I could have lost everything to a ghost of my own voice. That's the world we live in now. One where your voice, your face, your identity can be stolen and weaponized against you. Where family bonds mean less than property values. Where truth requires expensive experts to prove. I still have the recording equipment I used for Grandma's stories. Sometimes I listen to them, the real ones, not Sarah's fabrications. Grandma talking about her childhood, her dreams, her love for her grandchildren. Both of them, despite everything. Family is complicated, she says in one recording. But love should be simple. She was wrong about that. Love is the most complicated thing of all. Especially when it's betrayed by someone who shares your blood, your history, your grandmother's eyes. The prosecutors say Sarah might be out in 5 years with good behavior. She'll be 31, still young enough to start over. I wonder if she'll try to contact me. If she'll have real remorse or just regret at getting caught. I won't be there to find out. Denver is waiting, and with it, a life where nobody knows what my sister did. Where my voice is just my voice, not a weapon that was turned against me. But I'll always be watching, recording, documenting. Because in the age of AI, paranoia isn't madness, it's survival. And if you're reading this, thinking it could never happen to you, remember, I thought the same thing. Right up until I heard my own voice betraying me in a courtroom, speaking lies I'd never told, making promises I'd never made. Trust no one. Not even family. Not even yourself. Because in the digital age, nothing is real until proven otherwise. And proof? That'll cost you everything.